Show. Welcome to Bhavika's Chat Show. This is your host, Bhavika Kochar. I speak to interesting personalities from different domains like customer success, product management, entrepreneurship, and much more. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of Bhavika's Chat Show. Today we have a very special guest with us, and it's none other than Tyler Wonderlic. Hey Tyler, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to host you for sure. And Tyler has worked at a couple of companies like OnQ, Balto, Wonderlic, and he's currently working as a senior director of customer success at Hiya. So, Tyler, how is your role there? If you can let us know a bit about your role at Hiya currently.
Yeah, so my role really is to own all of our post-sale operations. So that includes servicing of our customers as well as customer success operations. And it's great because I got to work with tons of different types of customers,
Right.
both at executive levels, individual levels, and my team's responsible for net revenue retention and gross revenue retention.
Got it. Got it. And one quick question, Tyler, that I just had on top of my mind. Since you are a senior director of CS here, of course, you'll have a large team to handle, right? So, how do you handle people differences as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing with people differences, whether it's cultural or independent,
Yeah.
whatever, is really just to sort of be yourself and understand your people. And I think in the world of Zoom, where you can't always meet people face to face, that
Right.
requires a lot of Zoom conversations and hopefully face to face conversations at some point, just to
Right.
get to know people at an individual level. That's really important.
Right. That's very true because if you have that human element in your interactions at work or in mentorship, wherever you go, I think you'll be able to touch the life of the other people, right? And that's how we can actually make this world a better place, right?
Definitely agreed.
Awesome. So, Tyler, let's go ahead with the topic that you'll be enlightening us on today, which is leveraging data to make meaningful decisions, right? So, I'll give you some time so that you can help us learn more about this. How can we leverage data to the best of its capability at any kind of job, whether it's customer success, product management, or anything out there? But how do you make use of data? Because data is the new oil.
Yes, I definitely agree. So, a little bit, as you already mentioned, so, I've been running customer success teams for the last 7 years, times at, Balto and OnQ and now at Hiya. And so for those of you who don't know what Hiya is, we really have two separate products. One is spam and spoof protection mobile phone, and the
Okay.
second is branded caller ID.
Okay.
And so the second for branded caller ID, that's really all around providing reputation, or providing the opportunity with branded calls and logos for consumers so that they understand who's calling,
Okay.
which helps enables to increase contact rates, answer rates, things like that. So to your point, around data, my charter originally with Balto and with OnQ was really to build out the customer success teams from scratch. And
Okay.
at Hiya now, we're sort of focusing on deploying revenue against our commercial goals and revenue strategies against our commercial goals with a heavy emphasis on expansion revenue. So,
Got it.
the constant that I found at all three of these different roles was really to what you mentioned, the importance of data, right?
Yeah.
And so we live in a world where there are so many different tools, right? You've got
True.
product tools and
Yeah.
CRM tools and conversations.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of data at our fingertips, and it's all about how we can capture it and also how we can use it.
True. True. That's very true, Tyler. Because as a customer success manager, also, if I talk about myself, I think there is no such day where I do not work with data. Data is required at every place because until unless you crunch the numbers, you analyze the data, how would you know that what kind of insights can come out of that, and how would you be able to help your customer, right? So everywhere data exists, which is why this is a very, very important topic to discuss,
Absolutely.
right? Awesome. Thank you, Tyler, for giving us a couple of more insights there. I'll start with my rounds as part of this chat show. And the next round is my favorite, which is called the rapid fire round. I am very sorry, I do not have any chocolate hampers for you, but but definitely I would be your cheerleader, and I definitely want you to like pass all these questions with great marks. So if you allow me, should I start with that?
Yeah, that sounds great. Go for it.
Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead with our first question. How do you decide that you should take this data point into consideration or not? Like, is this a good data point or is this a bad data point? What should you like take like consider into your mind when you are deciding the optimum data points for your analysis?
I think the most important question to first ask before you start looking at data and spending time is, what is the outcome that I'm trying to drive,
True.
right? So, for example, is what I'm trying to do provide risk mitigation to my CSMs so that we're
Right.
more aware of customers that may be a churn risk, or on the
Correct.
flip side, are we trying to identify leading indicators for expansion, right? So as
Correct.
soon as you sort of get your hypothesis set,
Yeah.
then you can start going out and figuring out, is it a good data point or a bad data point? And especially
Correct.
early on in startups, what you want to do is you want to test everything, right? And you find that your gut
Yeah.
instinct typically is correct, but oftentimes it's not. And so again, start with, hey, I want to mitigate risk with this customer, so these 5 different data points seem like they may be useful, and then see
Right.
how it goes, and then pivot over
Right.
time.
Correct, correct. That's true, Tyler. Because when you're analyzing data, no, there's so much of data on the table, but that's where the real skill lies. You'll have to decide that which data point you should take into consideration and which you should ignore. Because if you have too much data also on the table, it brings a lot of confusion with itself, right? And specifically when you are presenting that data to your customer, so you have to be crystal clear while presenting the data to anyone out there, maybe your stakeholders, customer, C-level executives, whosoever is there.
That's right. And also, customers, they don't care about their product usage. They don't care
Right.
about things that may be important to us as customer success professionals. What they ultimately care about is, why did I sign up for your tool, and am I ultimately achieving that outcome that
Right.
that I intended to drive when I first bought, right? That's
Correct.
what they care most about.
Definitely, definitely. That's why we always say when you onboard an account or when you have just started talking to a customer, it's always very important to talk to them related to their goals, the goals that they're chasing, because otherwise it'll all go in vain. The entire energy that you've put as a CSM, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Great. Okay, let's go ahead with the second question. Do you have any tools into your consideration where you feel like that, yes, for analyzing data, one should use such tools? Some of these tools are really great. I know, of course, they can have different challenges like pricing and features, which is fine. But if we ignore those points and if we feel like that, okay, one should definitely use X tool over Y tool, or some tools which you have used in the past in your experience.
Yeah, I think that it's obviously most companies, even early startups, have CRMs, right? And
Right,
so I think most people right now use Salesforce, and
right,
Salesforce is great mostly for your CSM's communications with customers, right? And so the
correct.
data points that I'm looking there is each of our touch points with our customers. How are we capturing that information, storing it in our CRM? That's great. It's pretty. That's sort of ground level table stakes for CS and basic data points. From
Correct.
there, I'm a huge fan of Pendo for product
Yeah,
data,
yeah,
right? Being able to see how are customers using the product, are they logging in?
right.
I think they've got a really interesting thing called their Bdf score, which is
Okay,
breadth, depth, and frequency.
okay,
That's a great way to sort of look at usage data, which
okay.
again is more of a leading indicator, not necessarily
Yeah, fine.
piled in with the lagging indicator that we're looking for.
Right.
And then thirdly, I'm also a big fan of speech analytics tools. So Chorus is a great example of one
Yes,
where you can look at conversations and
right,
mine really important information that
right.
can help you to drive conversations with your customers.
Correct, correct. I so agree with you. Of course, these tools are wonderful. And apart from that, Tyler, if we want to analyze some of the data, there are some other tools like Tableau. Of course, Excel is widely present. But if you have to choose one between Tableau and Excel, what's your preference? Because now I see the world is changing. A lot of people are giving preference to Tableau because there's cool visualization. You have cool features out there. What do you prefer out of these two?
I think it depends on the state of your company. Really
Okay.
early on, you're probably using Excel, Google Sheets, which
Yes.
truthfully,
Yeah.
I think that as a newer CS team or a newer organization, stick with
Mhm.
that for a while, right? There's no real need to use really strong BI tools right
Correct.
off the get go, right? So that sort of scrappiness almost helps as you're able to afford and get into something like a Tableau. Um, uh, those stronger BI tools are amazing.
Right. Right.
My one sort of bone to pick with the strong BI tools typically is uh, oftentimes they're not actionable. Like you may have the
Right.
data, but unless you have somebody that can actually internalize the data
Right.
and operationalize it, you're getting a lot of information that you may not be able to use within your customer conversations.
Correct. And that's where I think business analytics will come into place because just having data or information doesn't really serve the purpose. You need to connect those data points to your business so that you can fetch an insight out of it and present this wherever you really want to, right? So you very rightly mentioned that, Tyler. Let's go ahead with the third question. Of course, there would have been many instances, many scenarios in the past where you must have helped your customers uh, with the data. Could you like share with us an example or a scenario where just presenting a couple of data points changed the entire story?
Yeah. So one of the cool experiences that I had at Balto was, building out our expansion process, right? So our
Okay.
customer success team is responsible for expansion revenue, and so one of the strategies that we deployed to really enable ourselves to hit expansion revenue was setting up A/B tests with
Okay.
every single one of our customers post sale, right? And so
Okay.
with our customers, what we would do is half of them would be using Balto, which
Okay.
is a real-time speech analytics product, and the other half would not be using Balto. And at
Okay.
the end, almost every single time we'd see a huge lift of the teams that were using Balto in their contact centers. However, there was one opportunity where this tried and true strategy didn't work the way we intended it to work. We didn't drive the
Okay.
outcome that we were intending to drive.
Okay.
Um, and it looked, on the surface, as a failure. But
Right.
as we started digging into the data, the metric that we were measuring, while
Hmm.
that didn't change, some of the underlying metrics that were just as important, in this case, collection rates, they
Right.
actually increased, right? So as a contact center, if you're trying to have higher conversion rates,
Hmm.
that's generally a really strong metric for your
Right.
organization. However, average collections or healthcare policies sold, things like that, as
Yeah.
important. So if you sort of look at one point and you miss
Yeah.
a bunch of the underlying ones that may be indicative of your company's or your product success, they ultimately can hurt you, and they can make it so that you can't close that deal or deliver a really strong customer experience.
True, true. I think that's wonderful. That's very true. It's just about checking out where you can put what kind of data and how can it be of use to your customer or to your stakeholders. So very rightly mentioned, Tyler. Let's go ahead with the last question in the rapid fire round. Did you face any challenges while leveraging data? Of course, one thing that I have in my mind is there'll be many data points on table. It brings complexity. That's one. But do you have any challenges? Have you faced any challenges in the past where you felt like leveraging data is becoming a task? It's becoming difficult for you.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely. And I think that's really common, right? Because as I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, there are so many different data points, and uh, uh, it's very easy to do something once, but to make it
Yes.
repeatable and ultimately to make it a habit for you and your team takes a lot of time and a lot
Right.
of coaching, right?
Correct.
And so,
Correct.
yeah, there's been many times where I've tried to get tools and I've been getting data points. Maybe you're creating a health score, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that health score is slightly indicative of customer health or
Right.
potential for the customer to renew or expand. But a lot of times people want perfection, and you're never going to get that perfection, right? It's a
Right.
constant
Yeah.
iteration over time.
Of course.
And so I really like to think about sort of overcoming this problem in three various steps. The first is see the data. The
Okay.
second is to understand it, and then the third is to operationalize it, right? How do we
Awesome.
actually take action from it? And so that third one being the most important, right? Because if I can't
Right.
take it and turn it into some repeatable action,
Right.
it's a waste. It's an absolute waste, and you're not going to be able to drive that habit with your team.
True, true, true. That's very true. And thank you for sharing those three steps. I think it'll definitely help so many people out there who have lot of data to analyze. So thank you, Tyler. I think you have passed with flying colors. Next time when I'm flying to US, I'm definitely getting for you a chocolate hamper.
Uh, Thank you. That sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead with our next round, which is called the three W's, which I generally ask these questions to all of my guests because I really want to understand their perspective. And these are very common, basic questions. I'll just go ahead with the first one for now, which is your favorite customer success book and why?
I love the Customer Success Professional Handbook,
I love it
and
too. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great book, and honestly, I
Yes.
recommend it to anybody that's trying to get into customer success or folks on my customer success team because it's a lot of it is what I've used to help sort of figure out my team strategy, both on the service side of customer success as well as the CS management side of the business.
Correct.
So it's a great read, and it's short and it's very engaging too.
I definitely agree with you there because I can read that book, I think, any number of time. It's always a treat to read that book because you learn something new every time. So it's my personal favorite too. Great. Okay, let's go ahead with the second question, which is very popular these days, which is what do you think CS will look like in 2022 or maybe in the near future? How do you think this will revolutionize? Because a lot of people have different opinions around this, and I really want to know your take on this.
Yeah, I think most people's opinions are probably right. They're not too far distant from where customer success is today, and
Yeah.
I'll try to give an answer that's somewhat in that boat, but also maybe a little bit different.
Okay.
One is table stakes for customer success teams has to be revenue generating, right? A
Okay.
lot of I've heard of a lot of customer success teams that aren't closely tied to renewal or expansion revenue,
Right.
and the problem there is if you're far away from the dollars, it's very hard to get budget for your function.
Correct.
So I think most, if not all, of customer success teams will have some commercial responsibility
Correct.
as we sort of get into the future. And so the second part of that, and of course, I'm going to make it around data, is there's going to be a further centralization of data to make it easy for customer
Yes.
success teams to drive behavior and activity with their customers, right? And so there's
True.
so many great customer success tools.
Yeah.
There's so many great data tools, and the ability to sort of tie that into one singular marketplace
Right.
where CSMs are able to drive action a lot faster. To
Right.
me, feels like a really strong theme that we're going to be driving towards, whether it's through AI, machine learning,
True.
additional avenues of data science. Those sorts of things will become very, very popular in the near-term future.
Correct. Right. And to that point, Tyler, I'd like to add one more thing, which is very it's in line with what you mentioned that for CSMs, it's very important to have data in one place because they're coordinating with different departments, they're handling their customers' queries, a lot of things they're doing day in and day out. We need to make things easier for them so that the data is in place and they can take care of a lot of things like on the same platform. They don't have to actually rush between two or three platforms checking these data details on something else, checking about the product adoption in some other dashboard. That creates a lot of it's a pain point for a CSM. So if you have things in one place, it definitely helps you do things faster as well, and then secondly efficiently also.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed.
Right. Okay, let's go ahead with the last question. Of course, since you've been working in CS for now so many years, you have great work experience with so many companies. What would be that one advice that you would like to give to a newbie out there who's just trying to get into CS domain?
Yeah, I think one is you don't have to start in customer success to get into customer success, right?
Right.
And a lot of people don't. A lot of people start in sales or
Yeah.
product, and you bring really great skill sets
True.
directly into your customer success role. So I'd say for those looking to get into customer success, immerse yourself. There's an amazing customer success thought leadership community, and simply by reaching out to amazing professionals or joining different communities, that's a great way to start. For folks that are currently in a customer success role and they're looking to broaden their career or advance their career, really I think the most important point there is engage yourself and immerse yourself in conversation with your leaders and your leaders' leaders, right?
Correct.
And so as a CSM, sometimes it's very difficult to do that because you're dealing with a lot of whether it be customer challenges or customer responsibilities. But if you can understand your company's strategic direction and you can start to ask your customers questions and bring the voice of the customer into those conversations, not only are you going to help yourself progress, but you're going to help your company in a really, really special way.
Correct. That's very right, Tyler. Because as a CSM, yes, there are a lot of things on the table. But when you connect with your leadership, or like you mentioned, your leaders as well, that's how you penetrate in the system, and that's how you can actually get that customer's voice into the system. Because you are the voice of your customer. You're working for your customer. You can actually represent them in front of your leadership, and that's how the company will also progress, like you just mentioned. But there's one quick question, Tyler, that I would like to ask you here, is that what do you think should be the cadence of this? Like, if there are people out there who want to reach out to their leaders or leaders, how do you think they should organize this in their daily schedule? Do you think they should talk about this every month, or is there any cadence around it? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I don't know if it's necessarily a structured cadence, but what it definitely is you want to bring problems and solutions, right? As a CSM, if you've got a question, or maybe you have some sort of product improvement that you feel like will just make such a difference to your customer to achieve his or her goal, instead of just coming to your leader and saying, hey, this is what I want, this is a problem. I think instead of coming, hey, this is what I want, this is a problem, this is why I think it's going to be beneficial to my customer, to the rest of my customer base, to our other CSMs, right? So you're sort of representing not only the voice of your customer, but the voice of all of your other CSMs customers as well. So to answer your question, though, I don't know if it's like a standard cadence, but whenever you feel like you've got real value to bring in that sort of conversation, do it. If it's my CSMs and it's daily or weekly, that's great, right? I love that. I love having those conversations.
Correct. Yeah, that's why I really wanted to ask if there's a cadence, and I think the right answer to it would be that as and when they like it. Like, if they feel like they really want to discuss something, there's something valuable that the leadership should know about, go ahead, like, ask them, because I think asking them questions or sharing with them the information will definitely help the entire company in the long run.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Great, Tyler. Of course, I am enjoying this conversation with you, and I do not want to let you go. But yes, I'll have to. Thank you so much for being such a great guest on the show, and I hope you liked being on the show as well.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyler. Take care. See you.
All right. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if yes, please spread the word. I would love to know your feedback, hence feel free to drop me a ping over LinkedIn. Stay tuned to many more interesting episodes. See you.